Welcome into the Vegas Squares podcast, where we discuss all things sports and sports betting. Presented by 12 Ounce Sports Radio. All right, welcome into the newest edition of the Vegas Squares podcast. We are sitting here after week one in the NFL is mostly in the books. It was a hell of a weekend with college football and the NFL debuting. We had a lot of different games going on. I mean, betting wise, Saturday couldn't have gone any worse, and Sunday couldn't have gone, well, other than going 5-0, couldn't have gone too much better. Got Token and Spike here in the studio with Aaron, and Spike, did you have any action on these games? I know you didn't get a chance to tweet about your picks.
Yeah, no, the only one that I took was I had Houston money line just because I didn't like that matchup for the Patriots, but that bricked. Whoops. Speaking of bricking, how about my fucking career? But no, that's
insert rim shot here.
Yeah. No, that's all I had. I didn't. I tend to overreact and get week one way wrong, so I stayed away from it.
3 and 4 and 5 and 6.
As the season goes on, I get better.
All right, we're going to hold you to that. That's going to be a bet right there. Because he's 0-1 to start out so
I can't go worse than 0-1.
That's fair. True that, yeah. Well, yeah, you can. 0-2.
Well,
and the Browns can't go 0-16 this year.
That's true.
Hey, everybody shoot off your confetti cannons. The Browns will not go 0-16.
Though I'm sure it feels like a loss to them.
I don't know.
Oh, no.
That's got to be a win for them.
They have not won a game on Sunday in 3 years. I saw that stat, and I mean, when there was when they tied the game up 21-21, it was like I believe CBS was showing the game. They showed every statistical graphic they could about the last time Cleveland won a ball game. They showed the video about when they beat the Chargers, and that was on a Saturday, and they were like, well, they haven't won on Sunday in 3 years. And, it was just, and then they showed an aerial, or not an aerial shot, but they showed a live shot of one of those beer coolers, and everybody standing around it when Zane Gonzalez was lining up for the kick.
Oh, no.
I wish they would have gone back to it after he got blocked by Watt.
Oh, no.
Because I could just see that. They grabbed the chain, and like, yeah, oh, well, it's Cleveland, so that doesn't seem too out of the ordinary.
Yeah, I did promise you that I would have bought a Browns jersey if they had pulled it off.
That is true. Yeah. That is true. I thought the Steelers would be. Was distraction really a thing here? Because it seemed more like they just. I thought weather played more of a factor in this than any other outside elements. No pun intended.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with you on that. I think it kind of slowed down the pace of the game, made a lot of throwing errors and untypical routes that you'd probably see then in normal fair weather.
So we'll talk about, obviously, this. We'll start with the Steelers-Browns game because, well, that's what we've kind of migrated to here. But if you're Le'Veon Bell sitting on the couch, how's the roller coaster of this game going for you? They start out 0-0 in the first, can't get anything going. And then they pretty much take control of the game in the second and third quarters. James Conner, 135 yards, 2 touchdowns. Also, in the third quarter, had a crucial fumble that led to Cleveland either scoring on the defensive side or they were pretty close and punched it in for 7 points in the third quarter. But at the end of the game, Bell tweets like a monocle emoji. Like, I see you, I guess, or he's puzzled. I didn't. What do you take of that one?
Yeah, it was either that or the Monopoly Man. I couldn't quite figure out what that was.
Rich Uncle Pennybanks?
Yeah.
Yeah, like, okay, maybe you do need me. I mean, they didn't lose the game, and, you and I had a text battle of sorts going back and forth.
Well,
you said that the discrepancy or the talent gap between these two teams is like the Atlantic Ocean.
Right.
Which I couldn't disagree more.
No, and what I was comparing it to was the talent gap between the Ravens and the Bills, because that was the other game going on at the time where I felt that the talent gap between Pittsburgh and Cleveland was massive, and Pittsburgh was barely ahead at the time. It was 7-0. Mm-hmm. And the gap between Baltimore and Buffalo isn't nearly as big, and Baltimore was up 3 touchdowns or 24-0, something like that.
And see, I think if McCarron was still on the roster in Buffalo, and again, not that he's lighting the world on fire, or obviously he would be a starter, I would probably tend to agree with you on that point. I just think with the moves the Browns made and the moves the Bills made, I think actually, in my opinion, and we'll let Anthony be the voice of reason here, the talent discrepancy in Baltimore versus Buffalo, even before they stepped on the field, in my opinion, was a lot greater than the Steelers and the Browns.
I would tend to agree towards Aaron's statement on that.
Be a boost in your paycheck.
Yay, ship it 1.5 cents.
Get paid more than I do.
No, I actually thought before this game had started, Cleveland had a legit shot of keeping this game close, if not even possibly winning this game.
Let's look at it from the basis, and I'll let you finish. Just the basics of what our show is. The point spread.
Yeah.
4 and 7.5. I mean, that alone should really, does that really highlight anything at that point? I mean, again, point spreads are theoretically more so what they can get action on both sides than actual necessarily like a number that really determines the true outcome of a game. Because, I mean, look, we saw a 10-point spread in New Orleans. We'll get to that game later. And they lost by 8. So point spreads aren't the be-all, end-all. But, I mean, initial lines, I'm sure I'd like to get actually, I'll probably look it up here in a second, where the money was going in both of these matchups, Pittsburgh, Cleveland, and Baltimore versus Buffalo. But defend your position here, sir, since I believe you decided to call me things.
No,
mean things.
Well, yes, but what I was saying is, aside from the Patriots, Pittsburgh is the class of the AFC.
Sure, I don't disagree with that, but I think that also matters if 26 is on the field.
Yeah, but I mean, he's shown that he can be replaced. I mean, Connor's, that was a good performance today. If he can keep that up,
if he can keep that up, you're absolutely right.
Then they don't need him. But what I'm saying is that Pittsburgh is great, Cleveland is shit, Baltimore is almost shit, Buffalo is shit. So my point was, because Pittsburgh is so good, regardless of how bad Cleveland is, and Cleveland is bad, Pittsburgh should have been up a lot more than they were at the time. Baltimore is not good, Buffalo isn't good, and Baltimore was taking care of business the way Pittsburgh should have been taking care of business in that game. So that was what I was getting at. It had nothing to do with whether or not Buffalo is decent, whether or not they should be fighting for another playoff spot. It was...
Oh, Buffalo's not fighting for a playoff.
No, they're definitely not this year. But I don't think Baltimore is either. I think that they're not good. I think, Flacco, like I said in the Picks podcast, his greatest offensive weapon is defensive pass interference. And his ability to lead a team down the field was much better when he was a game manager with a solid, unbeatable defense, and he doesn't have that anymore.
Well, what's different about the Ravens of 2018 versus the Ravens of 2017 other than new receiving core? Because the Ravens of 2017 missed the playoffs. Basically, they blew it in Week 17 when Andy Dalton decided to
show up,
be a Hall of Famer, and that's what actually got the Bills into the playoffs.
Right.
I don't think they got any worse. In fact, I think they may have gotten better. I think the receiving core with Crabtree, John Brown, the two tight ends they drafted in the first and second rounds, I think that's a lot better than what they had last year in Macklin and Mike Wallace.
Oh, I don't know.
No tight ends.
I think Wallace is better than whatever the
Wallace is a deep threat. I don't think he has anything else. I think John Brown can burn him just like Mike Wallace can. He showed that in Arizona.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not willing to put my faith in their new receiving core compared to the old receiving core, especially with 2 rookies.
Are you willing to make a wager, sir?
What are you offering?
That the Browns, the Baltimore Ravens, either make the playoffs or are +1 games out of the playoffs. So if 9-7 makes the playoffs, they're 8-8 or better. Or if 10-6 makes the playoffs, they're 9-7 or better.
Oh God, no! It's either in or out. I'm not.
Well, I said in the text I said playoff contender, and you called me absolutely stone cold nuts.
Yeah. No,
So
I don't think-
contender still
I think you are.
sits on the doorstep.
I
of
just
playoffs.
think this
I
plus
don't
one
think
game
he's
is.
legit that crazy, but
If Buffalo loses their game in Week 17, or Baltimore doesn't blow the lead in Week 17, they're a playoff team last year, and they were the sixth. They'd be the sixth seed, and they would have played Kansas City. No, who did Buffalo play? Jacksonville.
yeah.
They could have beaten Jacksonville, maybe.
If they had a few bounces.
The way that
right
Jacksonville
and all
played in that wild card game, they could have beaten
Yeah.
Jacksonville.
Yeah.
Hell, the Bills should have beaten Jacksonville in that game.
Yeah.
Nevertheless, that sounds like a good poll for Twitter.
All right.
We'll have to do. How do you phrase that? Is the talent gap wider in, and then the two options? Is that the best?
I think that's the way to
That
say
and
it.
then is Baltimore a legit playoff contender?
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of people have the mindset of spike on Joe Flacco, and we'll probably. I know the way that poll would probably go,
Fair enough. Yeah.
because they'll say, "Oh, they just beat Buffalo." I'm not ready to crown anybody on Baltimore. I'm not giving them this class of the AFC.
You're already giving Fitzpatrick the MVP trophy, so
That, you know how bad that is? I looked for GIFs or GIFs of Ryan Fitzpatrick, and the most recent one they have of him with the Jets. I mean, when was he with the Jets? I know he was, but like
2014 or something.
okay, so
Yeah, that's
three-year-old GIF.
I didn't watch that game. I mean, I saw the highlights, I saw the stats and everything from it. But in that Tampa Bay game, how many times did they mention that he went to Harvard? Because that comes up at least half a dozen times a game, and I'm wondering if we can start putting money on an over/under on that.
Or like a drinking game.
Yeah.
No, I don't want anybody to die of alcohol poisoning. Let's calm down with that.
All right, well, here, I mean, as you're seeing in the studio, I have two TVs set up in the studio.
Yeah.
The left TV stays on the Red Zone channel virtually all day. The right TV stays on Patriots, and then when it goes to commercial, it flips over to wherever the Bucks are playing. So Patriots games and Bucks games, that one flips back and forth. Because usually they're on at the same time, the 10 o'clock game over here on the Pacific Coast. Just in the times when I was flipping back, I think I heard like two or three. So
That sounds about right.
I can only imagine. I did hear two different occasions where he has the highest Wonderlic score too, which I did not know.
Oh, okay.
He set, I guess he has a perfect score on the Wonderlic, which is pretty cool.
Wow.
But
Interesting.
last thing on the Bengals on the Steelers before we move to another game. Any thoughts on this? And I know it's early; it's week 1. We got 16 more weeks to go, but there's a chance. You know, the Browns have shown that they could keep up with the Steelers. That's perfectly obvious right here. Maybe that teams still might not take them seriously in a sense of who they are. The Bengals won today. The Ravens won today. Could this tie matter in the AFC North at the end of the season?
I don't think so.
No?
I think Steelers are too good that they're still going to run away with the division by 2 or 3 games.
Ooh.
It might matter for, whether they get...
I'm not talking about seeding. I'm talking about the division. I know what you're saying. For seeding,
it's going to be,
seeding could matter.
second, third, fourth seed, whatever, that could matter. But I think for just in the AFC North, I don't know.
I think it can make a slight impact when it comes down to like the final 2 weeks or something, but I think they come out of this with the division win by half a game or a game and a half with the tie.
Cleveland's got to go to the Saints next week, who are desperate for a win, especially in one of the tougher divisions that the Bucks and the Panthers are leading currently. So Cleveland's got to go down and play a desperate New Orleans team. 48 points. Let's talk about that game. 48-40. Which actually I looked on Twitter.
I think the over was good by halftime.
I think the over was good by the Bucks.
No, it was 49.
Oh, okay. Well, my bad. Saints could get a safety and be good. I thought this. So I was looking. There's a Twitter handle called Scoreagami. That basically, anytime there is a score of a football game, a final score of an NFL game that has never occurred before, they tweet about it. And apparently, 48-40 has never occurred in the NFL.
Interesting.
So yeah, it wasn't that interesting. I just thought it was kind of cool.
For sports numbers and all that,
It is kind of wild that, like 48 is, they're not odd numbers. 48 and 40, that's...
Yeah, they're both even.
Yeah, I don't think there was even a field goal in this game. I think the Saints may have gotten one. Because I know I have Will Lutz in our
The
fantasy.
Saints did have one day. I had Lutz in fantasy.
I was like, because it was under 40 yards. Because I have Lutz in our fantasy league, and you don't get points for anything under 40 yards. And he had a goose egg today. So
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's probably going to put up 100 points just by himself tomorrow.
yeah. So all right, look. Obviously, I was mostly in jest with my Fitzpatrick for MVP, but I mean, let's look at this. I mean, they beat the Saints on the road, which.
Playing the Superdome.
You two had the Saints. No disrespect.
Well,
you two were
I
loving the
actually
Saints.
I had them to cover, too.
Yeah. So, not that I like Tampa to win this by any stretch. I'm not claiming that at all. But I thought they could hang close. It's a division game. They've always had that ability to challenge these teams, even when the Bucs are pretty terrible, which they're expected to be this year. What's that do for the confidence of this team, who then has to go play the Eagles and the Steelers in back-to-back weeks? I mean, to get out 1-0. You know, if Fitzpatrick somehow could beat one of those two teams and be 2-1, they got the Bears on a short week in week 4. I mean, is this a situation where maybe Jameis Winston's a little worried? I know it's only 1 week and we don't want to overreact, but
I don't think that's overreaction. I think that's a legit statement. I mean, if he comes out 2-1 in the start of the first 3 games for this Tampa Bay team, I think he might start week 4 and see what happens there.
well, Cutter's always been this quarterback guy that everybody, well, that's what I've been told. He was a quarterback, I don't want to say guru, but he's been able to do good things with quarterbacks. And it feels like after watching this team I've watched the team for a long time, but under Cutter and the Jameis Winston era, it seems like they have this like a car that backfires, and it's like a teenage driver trying to drive stick.
Oh, okay.
They go forward
Stalls.
and they stall, and they go forward and they stall, and then they go back and they stall, and they go forward. Nothing really seems to be. But the last 4 games with Ryan Fitzpatrick, the offenses look smooth. Again, I'm going back to 2017. The offenses look smooth, not flashy. And honestly, what I watched today, Ryan Fitzpatrick looks like a threat with his legs.
Yeah, I mean,
I know that doesn't make sense, but Jameis Winston's never been really that mobile quarterback that everybody thinks that he can or should be.
yeah.
But Fitzpatrick today, man, he was smart. And again, that's kind of an oxymoron, the Harvard thing, I get it. But he was smart on the field, and the way he carved up a defense that last year was one of the top ones. I mean, I'm not trying to analyze down the roster here or down the season here, but I think they can go in, and especially if Foles starts week 2 against the Eagles, I think they can go in and beat them. And the way the Steelers looked in week 3, Bell's not back. It doesn't shock me if these guys are 2-1 or 3-0. Now you can tell me I'm crazy.
Yeah, well, I don't think you're crazy. I think they have a legitimate shot of pulling off 2-1, maybe 3-0. You're right. What concerns me is the complete lack of a running game. With 48-40 the game today, Peyton Barber put up less than 70 yards. Mm-hmm. And you take out Ryan Fitzpatrick running with his legs, the total you got from your running backs was something like 75 yards. Mm-hmm. So
it almost sounds like something Lions would do. Almost.
I was shocked to see that Ronald Jones, their rookie, was scratched, unless it was for injury reasons. But they didn't even feature him or profile him or even get any looks at him at all, which the fumbles in the preseason could explain that. But I thought, you spend a second-round draft pick on a running back, you're going to want to try to see, at least when you were, they were up 48-24.
Right.
I mean, he was inactive. I mean, it was just like, what? It didn't seem, and that may change later on, but they got to get some semblance of a threat,
right? Because if you keep this offense one-dimensional, even with Ryan Fitzpatrick as smart as he is,
catch up.
They're good. The NFL is going to catch up with you because the NFL always catches up with you. The NFL always makes adjustments. Mm-hmm. But I think you're right. The first 3 games, they have a very legitimate shot of winning at least 1 more, if not 2.
No, I absolutely could see that being possible. I could also see them losing the next 2/3 games. I know they go against some pretty hard defenses, with Pittsburgh being pretty reasonable, I would say, and the Bears, I mean, they looked pretty decent tonight until the end of the game, so.
Yeah, I mean, let's switch over to the Saints. Enough about Fitzmagic over there, but I mean, it was a great game, 417 and 5 total touchdowns. I hope he can keep it going. I mean, obviously, one reason I like the Bucs, and 2, I got Mike Evans on my fantasy roster, and 147 and a touchdown every week ain't too shabby. So
yeah,
I'm not gonna hate on that.
I'm sure Vegas did pretty well on this game.
Yeah, I would say this is probably one of the ones because I heard a lot of people talking Saints football, and everybody has said that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers will be a dumpster fire, and that still may be the case. But like I said, the last 4 games under Fitzpatrick, they haven't looked flashy, but they've looked effective, and including 2 wins against the Saints. So
yeah.
All right, let's talk about the Saints because it seemed like. They're another team that, right now for the first 4 weeks don't have a running game. I mean, Kamara, yes, he had 2 touchdowns on the ground, but they were short scampers. He had a total of 29 yards on 8 carries, but 112 through the air with a touchdown. The air, Breeze is going to get his 439, 3 scores. No picks.
Yeah.
Not only no picks, but only 8 incompletions.
Yeah.
15 total in the game. 7 for Fitzmagic, and 8 for Breeze.
Yeah, if you had either of these quarterbacks in your fantasy team, you probably had a decent day.
Yes, I did not.
I will tell you, if you had Fitzpatrick on your fantasy team, I want to hear from you.
I did not, but I had Breeze in both mine. So
I'd love to see the guy on DraftKings who's puts Fitzpatrick in his lineup and just. That's what you got to do. You got to find that guy who's going to, especially in DFS, you got to find the guy who's everyone's not taking, who just blows up.
Well, I know in a regular PPR league,
Deshaun Jackson would be another one.
He got 37 points in our crazy total point league. He had 180.
I love that league. I think I have 600 points in that league this week. I'm not. I don't think I'm in 3rd place.
You're in 3rd, yeah. I have 4 people to go tomorrow, and I think I'll be on top after week 1. But
losing Rodgers for a chunk of that game, and I had a couple guys. But
I dropped my first pick too, so
that's true.
Yeah, you had to drop Bell because we don't have bench. We don't have bench slots.
Yeah.
This league is so stupid.
It's awesome.
But I picked up AP and he had.
Because what's funny is because I looked at it. I'm looking at our league and I looked at transactions. I'm like, it's like Le'Veon Bell. I'm like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. He's not playing and he doesn't have a choice. Yeah. So how long? The question is he going to play a chicken game?
Yeah.
Is who's going to whenever there's an inkling that he may come back, who's going to jump on it? Because there's no waivers in our league either. It's free agency, and that's it.
Yep.
So, all right, let's talk about the Bengals and the Colts. Andrew Luck coming back for the first time since the last week of the 2016-17 season. He looked fine. 319, 2 touchdowns. I watched this game. Red Zone seemed to show this one a lot. I don't know if it was because of the fact Andrew Luck was. I don't like that. And I know that Red Zone has to do something when no one's in the Red Zone. But I feel like when no one's in the Red Zone, maybe go 4 wide on your screens or 3 wide instead of just showing me one game because it may or may not be a game I'm interested in, which that's not their, protocol to make, me entertain, which, well, that's not true. It is. Yeah. You get what I'm saying, though. Point being is that you could go 3 wide and let me watch a few games instead of showing me a game that
show 2 or 3 games that are around midfield or something.
Yeah, when I watched this game throughout the first quarter and a little bit of the second, it was like they would show it. It was like punt, punt, punt. I'm like, come on, you got to find something else here, or go 3 wide. Anyways, moving on. Luck 319, 2 touchdowns. He did have a pick, which may or may not have been his fault. I don't know. It looked like the receiver ran the wrong route, but I'm not in the huddle, so I can't really tell. Here's another team. Again, another year with no running game. Marlon Mack, their starting running back, was hurt, but I don't know if he would have provided too much more of an offensive spark. They should have won this game, I think. Doyle with the fumble at the end that Cincinnati returned for a touchdown to put the game out of reach. Initial thoughts on Andrew Luck's first game back in almost 2 years.
I mean, for not being in a pro game officially in the regular season for almost 2 years, I thought he did all right. I mean, it was against the Bengals that are, I would say, above average on defense. They got some good speed. They can finish tackles compared to some other teams. And I don't know. I think Cincinnati got a few lucky bounces their way and ended up with the W.
Yeah, I think Cincinnati made it their mission, basically said, you know what, whether you believe Andrew Luck's elite, middle of the road, garbage, we're going to take a guy who hasn't played in almost 2 years. We're going to shut down the other facet of the game in the running. 75 yards, something like you were talking about.
Yep.
They had 75 yards rushing, 3.4 yards per carry, basically. And they said, we're going to let Andrew Luck beat us or, call it what you want. Andrew Luck win this game for Indianapolis. And up until the fourth quarter, he was doing exactly that. It was 17-23 going into the fourth quarter, and tight end let him down at the end. Defense, they need a lot of help on their defensive side of the ball, but I thought Andrew Luck looked really good overall. I mean, I'd give him a B in his performance. I think with that division, Jacksonville didn't look great. Titans obviously didn't look great, which we'll get to that later. There was a little bit of a weather delay. And Houston, Deshaun looked like a rookie today. So I think Andrew Luck gives this team hope that he's going to have to do a lot of things in spite of the rest of his team. Yeah. And I think Andrew Luck's going to be just fine this year.
Yeah, I think he'll be fine. He looked okay. Colts' last score coming about halfway through the third quarter, so he's got to be able to put up points in all four quarters, otherwise they're going to have a long season. I think their problem is their defense. They gave up 3 consecutive scores to Cincinnati before they ran the last fumble in for a touchdown. And, they couldn't protect a 23-10 lead. This is a team that, even with Andrew Luck, they need more than just a good quarterback in order to win more games in this division than anybody else.
Yeah, they either got to find a good, solid running back to control the game management for Andrew Luck, kind of the run, eat up some of the clock, or or they just got to have Andrew Luck have a few more extra weapons, such as a pretty strong tight end that could block as well as catch besides Ebron.
Yeah, and they got to hang on to the ball too. You can't keep coughing up fumbles and interceptions like that. So.
Yeah,
especially against a team like Cincinnati that might actually be able to put up a fight. Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah, what really happens when they come across a true contest like Pittsburgh or something?
Right.
That's a whole different ballgame then. So.
Yeah. I was rooting for Indianapolis, but I didn't think that. I thought they had too many holes, and then Andrew Luck the first week back wasn't going to be quite enough to do it. So my Bengals +3 came in through there, so I won't hate on that, even though I was rooting for Luck to do well. Let's move on. We got a game I'd like to spend a little bit of time on, not just because we're Patriots fans here, but just because first of all, I got a question. I know we're recreational bettors, but I never touch the Patriots unless I'm betting on them.
Yeah.
You thought you found a spot here where they weren't going to win. Let's just say for lack of anything else.
Yeah. Yeah. The flashes that I saw from Deshaun Watson last season, plus relatively healthy J.J. Watt, Clowney, Merciless on defense, with a remade Patriots offensive line, no Patriots wide receivers that are worth a damn. And a Houston team that looks hungry, that looks like this is a year that they really want to put shit together and get going. So I figured, plus with the Pats being favored by, I think it closed at 6.5, something like that.
So, yeah, 6.5, depending on where you got it.
So the money was right, New England historically takes a while to gel together to get the team going. So most of their losses in the season come at the beginning of the season, specifically in week 1, week 2. So this was a spot where I really thought I had something in Houston being able to win. Obviously that didn't happen. I'm happy about that. I'm fine lighting money on fire. If it means that the Patriots win, I call it the happiness hedge. So I am very willing to take a loss in order for the Patriots to win. I thought Houston would be better than what they showed me today.
Yeah, I'm kind of surprised with Houston. They kind of just seem to lay a kind of Deshaun Watson just didn't have that kind of magic that he had last year, it seemed like. Especially when it came to passing. Last year with his passing, it seemed a lot stronger, and he was throwing into little windows a lot more efficiently.
Sure, and the flip side of that was also the coaching, and for some fucking baffling reason that nobody seems to give me an answer about, defenses just want to put a single linebacker on Gronkowski. When has that ever worked? When?
What else are you going to do?
Fucking triple team him and mug him at the line. Like, do something.
Chris Hogan goes for 150 yards.
Yeah, but they got to do something to stop that guy because that's always the guy that Brady's going to look for first.
Well, they double covered him on his touchdown. It didn't fucking matter.
No, but through the rest of the game, they put a single linebacker on him, and Gronkowski blew by him. The teams have to figure out a way to guard this guy, otherwise he's going to continue to burn them.
Yeah, it's kind of like Kelvin Johnson became white and became a tight end.
Could you fucking imagine if at some point, after Aaron Hernandez went through all his shit, if Belichick would just be like, hey, you know what would be a good idea if we went back to finding another athletic tight end to pair with Gronkowski? Like, why has that not happened yet?
They've tried a couple of times. They just haven't found anybody that's been able to last.
But they've gone in the bargain bin.
Yeah,
like,
I know.
Hernandez, I believe, was a second-round pick or something like that. Like,
Hernandez.
they had two. They could have gone and got that Andrews or that Hurst guy. Both the guys that like Baltimore got. I was watching those guys. Those guys are freakishly athletic. Both Andrews and Hurst. Anyways, I go back to this, and I'm not. Obviously, this is hindsight, easily 2020. But this is something that I thought about before making my pick in this game. Was all right. You have Bill Belichick. You have who was the head coach for the Houston Texans?
That's former Patriots quarterback coach Billy O'Brien.
Who calls the plays?
Yes.
Who was the defensive coordinator?
That is former Patriots defensive coordinator Romeo Crennel.
How many games has Deshaun Watson played in the NFL before Sunday?
6.
Was it 6?
6.
Yeah.
So you have two Belichick disciples. It's the same with Saban in college. Two Belichick disciples and essentially a rookie quarterback with no running game and no offensive line. I get what you're saying. The Patriots are retooled, but I got the best quarterback in the game, the best coach in the game against pretty much an open book.
Yeah. No, you're right. I looked at too many of the Patriots negatives without looking at the Houston negatives, and that's where I should have been focusing. I didn't even look at the Houston offensive line, which I should have.
They were bad last year, and they lost Dwayne Brown when they traded him to Seattle. But, yeah, it's just, I mean, I'm not going to be loving 6.5 point spreads all year with New England. I'm a little worried. I know this sounds crazy. I'm a little worried about Jeremy Hill's injury because he actually looked pretty good out of the gates. I thought maybe he was going to take over lead back roles for this game. But Burkhead did well as well. I'm rooting for Jeremy Hill because I think he's got a better set of skills than a lot of the guys, other than James White, receiving ability. But I was happy to see Philip Dorsett get involved in this game.
Yes.
Because I think he had more yards on one catch than he did. He had a 14-yard catch. I think that was more yards than he had all of last year. Do you remember the Super Bowl bet I made?
It was 1.5 yards, right?
No, that was Dwayne Allen. The Super Bowl bet with Philip Dorsett I think was like 7 yards, and I think I don't know if I hit that or not. I can't remember.
Oh my God.
But it was like his over/under was like 6.5 yards. Actually, I think I did hit. I think he had like a 9-yard catch in the Super Bowl last year.
Yeah.
But,
yeah, that sounds right. Yeah, no, I think the thing that actually I'm excited about with New England is that they actually have a legitimate defense.
Yeah, they looked good.
They haven't had for a couple of years. Chung looks great. Trey Flowers, as Tony Romo was saying, is probably the most underrated defender in the game right now. The rookie Bentley looks fantastic. Having both McCourty twins out there is going to be a big plus. I really like what their defense is doing this year.
Yeah, the only thing that really scares me is Gilmore.
Yeah, he gives up too many penalties, but
Too many penalties, and the thing is when he makes a good play, it seems like he only made it because of a hold earlier in the route. Or
Yeah.
It just, he in big games, it seems like he'll be, I don't want to say he'll be a liability, but it seems like he may have, we may have some issues down the line with that. But you got 2 away games going forward for the Pats. I assume they'll be favored in both of them. Well, the Jaguars maybe not. What do you think that spread's going to open up at?
I think it's going to be close, but I'd still say probably Patriots minus 2.5.
2.5. That's what I was going to say. I was 2.5 to 3 was right where I was at. It wouldn't shock me if that opened up as a pick 'em though. If they think that the Patriots are 3 points better, I think that with the home field advantage, they may make. What'd you decide on that one with a pick 'em? Jags at home, beat them last time in Jacksonville.
Yeah, I still take New England. And that one,
I would say the value on that is definitely New England.
Yeah, because it's only going to get worse. The value is only going to get worse for New England. So if you think the Pats can win, you bet it early instead of waiting for it to go to 1.5 to 2.5.
Yeah, where all the public money comes in, as well as some sharp money.
See if they've got a line out on it yet. New England's opened up as a 1-point favorite.
Really?
Yeah, at the Westgate.
Okay.
See if William Hill's got it up.
According to this, William Hill has 1.5 for the New England Patriots.
Fuck. All right.
So
I don't have an account with Westgate yet.
I don't have an account with them, but I just have their app as far as just to be able to see it.
On their Superbook website.
You can look on all their stuff without having an account, which is kind of cool.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's not. William Hill doesn't have it on their app yet. They just have the 2 games tomorrow night.
Okay.
All right, Jimmy G, 7-1. Vikings beat the 49ers 24-16. They just really never got anything going as far as San Francisco. The score was not as close as it indicates, but I didn't watch too much of this game. But from what I saw when Red Zone kind of flipped it up, Minnesota looked great on both sides of the ball and actually probably took their foot off the gas in this game. And San Francisco, even when they took their foot off the gas, couldn't really capitalize on anything. Like I said, the score, in my opinion, wasn't even as close. Or, the game wasn't as close as the score would indicate.
Right. Well, I think the big difference here was Garoppolo made mistakes and Cousins didn't.
Yeah.
Garoppolo threw the 3 picks and Cousins went
2-0.
Yeah, and 20 for 36. So, that should be good enough to win on most nights, especially against a team that, even with Garoppolo, should be pretty bad. Maybe not bottom of the division, depending on how Arizona shapes up, but still pretty bad.
Yeah, and I said this before the season, and I'm sure not alone in this sentiment. I don't think okay, great, Jimmy G is 7-0, blah blah blah, but he's not the type of quarterback that masks a lot of inefficiencies that they have on this team. I mean, your leading receiver is your tight end, who was a 5th-round pick last year. George Kittle. They've got, obviously, Goodwin went out after 1 target, no catches. But Pierre Garçon leading the charge. They just don't have enough talent on offense. And the defense, other than the defensive line is really good, but the rest of their 7 is not. And that includes Richard Sherman.
Yeah, talk about kind of overvaluing kind of a cornerback in my mind.
Yeah, I mean, if he doesn't throw 3 picks, obviously one of them went back to the house. But, yeah. I mean, like I said, Jimmy's got to be a good enough quarterback to mask he's got to be Tom Brady, basically, with a team like this.
Oh, yeah.
This team has average players and needs the quarterback to be the $127 million quarterback that they expect him to be. And 1 game in, at least in this season, he's not.
Yeah. I mean, maybe he could develop into it towards the middle/end of the year, but
that's the question I have: are there going to be games this season where Jimmy plays well and then his defense gives up 50?
That could be.
It seems they have to win games. The 49ers have to have the perfect storm every week, and I just don't think they're that good.
No, realistically I could see them going anywhere from like 6-10 to 9-7 or something. I mean,
yeah, they got a really weird schedule coming up. They got your Lions,
yeah,
which we haven't seen them play yet. Then they go at the Chiefs and at the Chargers, 2 tough teams. They get the Cardinals and they play the Packers. I mean, there's a chance they could be out of the division by the time they play the Rams in week 7.
Yeah. Yeah, they could be. I don't know. I'm looking forward to the 2 games tomorrow night. They'll already be done by the time everybody's listening to this. So,
I think they. What time does the game start?
There's 2 of them. First one's at
4:10, so that's 7:10 on the East Coast, which we're airing at 8:00. So, this game will be in full mode by the time they hear, our podcast. But we can still talk about the Rams and Raiders game. But
yeah,
a game I actually thought I would be interested in, but more I watched it, got very bored with it, was the Jags-Giants game. It was a lot of bad football.
Yeah, and Jacksonville didn't look that dominant like they did last year.
Jacksonville looks like this is going to be the blueprint for them to repeat. Whatever repeating means, winning division, getting to AFC, getting to the Super Bowl. Bortles is a C-plus quarterback. And obviously losing Leonard Fournette, who had 4.6 yards a touch before he got hurt.
Yeah,
he's got to stay healthy. Defense played well again. Correct me if I'm wrong, but Barkley scored at the end. That's right. I was going to say, correct me if I'm wrong. They didn't give up a touchdown.
They gave up the 168-yard run to Barkley or whatever.
But Jacksonville's going to play C+ offense, and they have to play A+ defense. Eventually, that in today's league, that's not going to be good enough.
Yeah, no, especially in a division where the Colts maybe are back again if they can put a defense together. If the Titans can hang on to what they had last year, and I'm still, even with Houston's performance today, I'm not completely unsold on them. So
no, they're not a bad team.
No, so
Houston could be a wild card contender, or maybe
somebody's got to win
wild
this
card
division
teams at the end of the year.
Yeah, somebody can win the division, and as we've seen, teams have won a division at 7-9 before. So
yeah, this division could be close to 8-8.
Yeah,
wasn't there a division that the winner was like 6-10 or? Yeah, it was 6-10 one year or whatever due to a tie. I think that was the NFC South, if I'm not mistaken.
There was NFC West maybe 5 years ago. I know Seattle won it, or I think it was Seattle won it at 7-9. I don't know about 6-10. That doesn't ring a bell. Not to say it didn't happen. I
think they were like 7-8-1. I think.
Oh
that,
yeah, there was a tie. Yeah.
I think Carolina won the division at like 7-8-1. I think.
Yeah, it was that division though. It was 3 or 4 years ago or so.
It was 2014. They won the division 7-8-1, and then they won a playoff game.
It's probably against the Lions.
Weird fucking league, man.
That was what a weird, like, listen to this. So the three years in a row Carolina won the division. 2013, 12-4. 2014 they won it at 7-8-1, and then 2015 they won it at 15-1. It's like,
God, it sounds like Bitcoin.
that's pretty crazy. But I want to say that like 7-8-1, and yeah, they were like tied for the division. I think they won on a tiebreaker or something like that. I'll try to find it here while you're talking.
Okay. Yeah, I think it could be one of these divisions where maybe 8-8 wins it, or even 7-9 potentially is the outright winner. I mean,
I will make a strong declaration that no team will enter the playoffs this year under 500. There are too many good. 500? There are too many good teams.
So 8-8 would be a win.
Well, that's not under 500.
I know. No. Yeah, I wouldn't take that wager.
You think somebody would get in?
No. I would think everybody that gets in the playoffs is 500 or better.
Oh yeah, seriously.
Yeah.
So yeah, the NFC South in 2014, the New Orleans Saints were 7-9, the Atlanta Falcons were 7-9, and the Carolina Panthers were 7-8-1. That is absurd.
That tie matter.
3 awful teams and 7-8. That tie, yeah. I think they tied the Bengals that year. Let me look. Yep, they tied the Bengals that year. It's the only other team with a tie. So.
Yeah, it was like one of the last 3 games.
I think that was the year like Cam Newton was like, I didn't even know there were ties in football.
I remember that. He didn't know what the rules were.
He's looking around like, what? And then I remember him on the podium. He's like, I didn't know there were ties. So
just on the airplane.
But okay. So should we foreshadow too much back to this game? Is this going to be New York? I mean, I know they played a grade A defense, and Barkley still got 106 yards. Beckham still got 111 yards. Eli had what's been kind of a tapered Eli game lately. 200 and a pick. They play in a tough division. I mean, they got to win games. They're not expected to win this year because they're a team that's not great. But your Texans, they got to go play the Texans. They got to go play the Cowboys. They got to play the Saints. They got to play the Panthers. Like this schedule is ridiculous.
Yeah, and this is Eli has to step up because he's been not terrible, but he's been mediocre for a while now. And if they're going to do anything worthwhile, he has to do better than no touchdowns, 1 picks, 200 and a quarter, or whatever it was. He's got to be better than that.
The question I have is that, they spent a lot of money on defensive line, on the defense too, to run this 3-4. They traded for Ogletree. They only gave up 20 points. They were in the game theoretically, for the most part. Is this a situation where the defense, who's all getting paid a lot of money? I mean, theoretically, if you give up 20 points a game on defense, your offense should be able to win you a lot of games. But
Yeah.
this team may not be able to do that.
No.
That's like the Bears last year. The Bears gave up 18 points a game on defense, but their offense could only get 15 and a half.
Yeah, and they still ended up, 6-10?
Yeah, 5-11, something like that. But it's just like, I'm not blaming the defense, but maybe the defense just has to dig a little bit deeper and work a little bit harder because there's a lot of the teams on this schedule, the Giants' schedule, that are going to be able to score a lot of points. Mm-hmm. You talk about Houston, you talk about New Orleans, you talk about Carolina, you talk about Philadelphia, you talk about Atlanta, and then a couple of those teams they got to play twice. Dallas is another one.
Yeah, well, I think what this comes down to is maybe the offensive playbook. If they can maybe dig a little deeper in their playbook and see what magic they can work, especially with new additions of Saquon Barkley and Odell Beckham being back. So
yeah, I mean they targeted Barkley 6 times in the receiving game, gave him 18 carries. So I mean theoretically they gave him 24 looks,
which is pretty solid. Yeah,
I mean. Other than that, I mean, they gave him 24 looks. They gave Beckham 15 looks. I mean, those are the two guys,
Yeah, but I mean that's part of the problem is that they don't really have much else on offense they can rely on. So those guys get covered by a good defense and forget about it, which means presumably that's 2 losses to Philadelphia right there this year.
Do you think they maybe go free agent looking and maybe talk to Dez Bryant?
Oh.
Maybe. I mean, I actually thought Sterling Shepard and Evan Ingram would provide pretty decent alternative options in these guys. And I know it's only one game, but, we'll see.
Yeah.
It's going to be, it might be another long season for New York.
Yeah.
And again, I don't want to make too much out of playing Jacksonville, but, you gotta have a better showing than that at home in week 1,
Yeah.
We can just gloss over the Ravens-Bills, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's just... Buffalo's pathetic.
Start to finish. I mean, Buffalo...
They put up 3 points.
Actually, you know what? I will ask a question because I did make a prop bet before A.J. McCarron was traded this year.
Okay.
And now I'm very, very, very afraid for that prop bet.
What is that prop bet?
I made a prop bet that no team in the NFL this year would lose 14 or more games.
Oh, yeah, you're fucked.
I think they're going to do it.
So they can go 3 or...
They can go 3-13 or better.
Yeah.
Because other than you take out the Browns last year, every team went 3-13 or better.
Yeah.
And I figured the Browns would be improved.
Yeah.
And I looked over the last 5 years, only 5 teams, one team each year, but it's an average of one team each year, but it hasn't been that way, has gone 2-14 or worse.
Better hope the Bills tie like 3 times.
Yeah.
I mean,
if the Bills and Browns tie, I'd be like, that's a lock.
I mean, the Jets, obviously we haven't seen the Jets yet this year, but I'm not super impressed with
They can win
what
3
they're doing.
games.
They should be able to, yeah.
I think they're going to win tomorrow night.
Well, the Jets should at least win 1, if not 2 games, that being against the Bills.
Right, but what I'm saying is the Bills have to play the Jets twice, so can Buffalo split that series even?
I kind of need them to.
Yeah.
Or maybe Buffalo gets 2 wins and somehow sneaks out another win for you, and then the Jets find 2 other victories.
All right, I lied. We're going to look into this game because I want to look at the Buffalo Bills schedule and see. I need to find 3 wins.
Or do the Bills just say fuck it and start Allen over Peterman?
They're going to.
And then Allen ends up sending
by
him
like week 3 or 4. We see that happen. If
I
not
believe
this
by
week,
like the second quarter because remember the last time Peterman played the Chargers? I think he's still throwing picks. He had 5 picks against the Chargers last year.
So I mean, theoretically, Allen could come in and wow everybody, and make them 5-11 somehow.
Wow me 3 wins,
like Garoppolo did last year.
If they play Allen, I think their possibilities for wins lie in Tennessee,
No.
the Jets,
Yes.
the Dolphins,
Maybe.
Yeah.
the Lions, and the Dolphins again. So they have 5 chances to get 3 wins, in my opinion.
They got to go 60% in those games.
Yeah. I don't know.
I'm not saying they can't beat the Bears. They're not going to beat the Patriots.
I don't know. The Bears looked pretty good today until
they
Aaron Rodgers got on the field.
until halfway through
Until
the
they
fourth quarter.
didn't. Oh my god. Yeah, we'll get to that because that was. Anyways, Chiefs Chargers, another Charger meltdown. Chiefs look good. I may have been wrong on Pat Mahomes, but I don't want to jump ship on that. I think he's overrated, trained too early. I'll eat my words in Week 8 if he still looks like this. But
it was against the Chargers too. I mean,
yeah, it's true. I mean, no Joey Bosa, which one man does not a defense make, but
Tyreek Hill looked pretty damn good in that game.
Yeah.
That was a good pick on fantasy.
yeah, he's a good player.
Yeah.
You can't pat yourself on the back for like a second-round pick. They're supposed to perform, dude. Of course, in a 14 league, he might have been like a 6th-round pick.
Yeah.
All right. In fairness, with what we're discussing with Mahomes, I may have bit off more than I can chew with in terms of Russell Wilson, because although I'm still very high on him, by the looks of it, the way that the Broncos played Sunday, they should not have come out with a win. And it looks like Russell Wilson, though he's an MVP candidate, is not going to be able to do it all by himself.
Yeah, it just looks like he's the one-man band, and he's got no weapons around him.
Yeah, and I mean that defense is not what it used to be. This is the kind of team that really needs to get their shit together on defense in order to even compete in this division, especially with the Rams looking as good as they do. And they just don't have it anymore, especially, not that Richard Sherman has looked great in 49ers uniform, but they need something.
Yeah, and I mean, it's crazy to think, because I don't think they played terrible. I mean, they were missing KJ Wright. They were obviously missing Doug Baldwin, who gave it a go but really could not play. They had no running game. 64 yards total on the ground. 5 of those were Russell Wilson's. They're close. They're not going to be able to compete for the NFC West crown like I thought they would. They can still make a playoff position. But I look at it, I'm not quite sure if it's one thing that needs to change or if it's everything that needs to change on defense, because they picked Case Keenum off 3 times. They sacked him only once, which Russell Wilson was sacked 6 times. So all that money they spent beefing up the offensive line in Seattle, again, well, it's tough to say against Denver and Von Miller, but it's hard to really take away anything from this, because Russell Wilson, although he looked great in the game, he overall wasn't. He's not the MVP caliber quarterback that's able to just overcome everything like Brady and Rodgers.
Yeah, I think they're missing. I think the one piece of the puzzle that they're really missing on offense is like a good solid tight end that could block as well as make those solid catches.
Like Jimmy Graham.
God damn it!
They cut him? Did they cut him?
I don't know. I was looking at fucking available players in our fantasy league, and
Jimmy Graham can't be on
half a second. No, I don't care about that.
I was like,
No, I was looking at
I
it,
actually think I might have Jimmy.
and I was half a second late getting to him. Motherfuck!
oh, okay. Sorry, hold on. You need a tight end in Seattle. Maybe like
Jimmy Graham?
there you go. Good job, Spike. Gold star.
Nice.
All right. Speaking of gold star retards, how about Sam? How about Sam Bradford? I'm sorry. Am I gonna get? I'm not gonna hashtag retard in when I post the podcast, because I don't want a whole web of SJWs to come my way. Where was I? Sam Bradford.
Yes.
I shouldn't hashtag him either, because I'm sure that he has a coalition of people still defending him as a quality NFL player at this point. I heard the guy, whoever was doing the game. Oh, you have Jimmy Graham? Congrats. How'd he do tonight?
4.6 points.
4.6 points in a league that gives away points like fucking candy, Halloween candy?
Yeah.
Anyways, I heard I forget who was doing the game, but somebody said that, Sam Bradford's still a tier 2 grade A quarterback or whatever. He said, basically, he was like, if they can get the offensive line troubles fixed, they could really go somewhere with this team with Sam Bradford. And I feel like I threw up my pizza a little bit. But the question I really had is that they really didn't seem to get David Johnson involved as much as they should have gotten him involved in this game. He had 9 carries, and I believe he had 9 targets receiving. So it just, to me, doesn't seem like, even though they were down 24-0, they weren't down quickly. Like they scored 21 in the second quarter, but they scored early, down 7-0, and then really late in the quarter.
Yeah, it was kind of baffling to see how little he was used and how sporadic he was used. This is a player that can make big plays for you, and I can't figure out why he wasn't getting the looks that he should have. I wondered if it has something to do with the coaching staff losing confidence in him.
That's a possibility. I mean, he is off, first game off of basically a year-long injury. He played, half of football last year?
Yeah.
And maybe they just didn't want to go too much too fast. And then by the time, I guess, the game got away from him, they were like, because he still scored the touchdown in the fourth quarter. So just to me, I just felt like, if once you're down 24-0, if you're worried about hurting him, you take him out at that point. So it was just a little puzzling. And I understand this is Wilkes' first game, and how do you think Adrian Peterson felt for this one? I mean, not that he really had great games in Arizona and they got rid of him, but it has to feel good doing that against a former team, because I believe when he was cut from the Vikings or not re-signed and he signed with the Saints, didn't he basically say, because they played each other week 1 last year, he basically said he wanted to come out and run it right down their throats.
Yeah,
I think he got 3 carries.
It was his Super Bowl.
Yeah.
And he didn't get to participate.
So this may have been his NFC championship then?
Yeah, he was the Malcolm Butler of that team.
So, all right, well, I don't want to spend too much time on that game, because that game was a real snooze fest, but...
Yeah. Maybe the Cardinals can let David Johnson make an attempt at passing.
Yeah, so we can do it all.
Yeah.
Before we move on, when do you let the Ferrari out of the garage there, though? In Arizona. And the Ferrari being Josh Rosen.
Right.
Obviously.
So we got to go over their schedule.
Okay, I'll open up their schedule here and see what they got running for. Because they're in the NFC West. And so they got at Rams.
That's a loss.
Bears.
That's a loss.
Seahawks.
That's a loss.
At 49ers.
Okay, that's a win. So, yeah, that's a win. They'll start Rosen.
Is that a win legitimately, or you're like, I got to find one here, or he could go down 17 weeks?
No, I think that's a legitimate chance for them to win.
Okay.
So I think that not that you want to give him a cupcake schedule, but you want Rosen to have a chance to win. You don't want him to go out there and get his fucking bell rung to start with, because you want him to have at least confidence. Even if he ends up losing the game, you don't want it to be like what Peterman has experienced.
Bears, Seahawks, Vikings, Broncos sandwiched around that 49ers game.
Yeah, so it's... I mean, I'm not saying that it's going to be an easy stretch for him.
I get what
no
you're
matter
saying.
when he comes in. But
if there's a spot where he could still be alive, it's probably after the 49ers game. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's fair.
So I could see Rosen coming in for that one.
I was just looking at the ESPN quote, Bradford. No one wants to start the season like this. Yeah, no shit. You're 0-1, you scored 6 points. What do you think? Cowboys-Panthers was really an ugly game. Cowboys got nothing done on offense, and not really to toot the Panthers. They didn't really get anything done on offense themselves either. It was a very ugly game, and not really sure what to make of this for both teams. I think Dallas is better. I think actually both teams are better than the game they played, but the defense has played really well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sold on Carolina's defense still. I like what I saw today. I think that can carry this team, especially in a division that is so offensive heavy. If they can slow down any of those offenses, they get a good chance of winning some really good games.
Yeah, one thing with their defense that really stands out is that they can actually finish tackles.
Ah.
And that's one thing that a lot of good defenses lack to that next tier level.
A lot of guys don't know how to tackle anymore, whether it's not being coached right or the new rules.
Yeah.
I mean, thankfully, we only had one ejection, I think, with the new helmet rules, and I actually was watching it live when it happened, and the guy tried to fight it, and what's his name? One of the referees who does the in-game comments said that would have been an ejection, or that would have been a 15-yarder last year too. So
yeah.
So far, it doesn't seem to have been affecting the games at least through 1 week. Prescott seemed to be running for his life, which all we talk about is how great this offensive line is. That's a cause for concern, in my opinion.
Yeah, it definitely is a worrisome cause for how strong this division could potentially be, and that's got to be worrisome that maybe even Zeke might not be able to run as effectively as he has been able to before.
Yeah, I mean, he had 4.6 yards a touch, 69 yards on the ground, and a touchdown. The touchdown came late. Yeah, they just didn't really seem to have anything going. And, again, this is week 1. It's really hard to speculate entire season on how a team will look because, I mean, I thought the receiving core would be just fine. And based on this, the time that the parts of the game that I watched, the time that Dak Prescott actually had to pass, the receivers, the names on the back of the jersey were largely irrelevant. He could hit a guy,
Square right in the
yeah,
chest.
he had no problem with that. They had no problem catching the balls. So, realistically, I think Dallas will be fine. I mean, Carolina's a good team. I think Dallas will be okay. I think they're better than this game. And they just need another week of practice to basically figure out what the offensive line, if it's going to be an issue this year, which hopefully it won't because they spent a lot of money on it.
Yeah, hopefully they can straighten it out for the rest of the season to come. So,
well, I think all three of us, correct me if I'm wrong, Token, you may have been the only objector. I think all three of us were on the Packers.
no, I took the Bears.
You took the Bears?
Yes.
You want to know something funny, though? I, on the podcast, said that you convinced me, actually, with your decisiveness on the phone. You were like, yeah, it's a cakewalk in Lambeau. I had the Bears. You changed my mind.
Really?
Yeah.
So me saying that the Packers...
Something about it just made me feel like, yeah, I think you're actually right. I think.
Chose the fade spike.
Well, yeah, no, I chose the tail spike because I was on the Bears, and then I thought, everybody's overblowing this Khalil Mack trade. Trubisky's going to have a hard time in Lambeau, and I thought it was going to be 44-20 or something like that.
That's what I expected.
All that based on after what he said, but I was on the Bears. I mean, I have it written proof I was on the Bears up until you freaking opened your jaw.
And that was the thing. Like, I didn't even give in-depth analysis when we were talking about
Something about it, dude.
You just went to the game. I'm just like, yeah, Packers and a laugher.
So
Yeah.
I didn't.
I like the Bears even before they signed Mack, and
Wow.
with the
and I did too. And this was before. And in fairness, on the flip side, I also actually wrote down Dallas. And then on the podcast, if you listen to it, I changed my opinion on that too. So in fairness, not because of anything you said, when we were talking about it, I also changed. I had the Chiefs on here, and I changed it to the Chargers. I don't know why I do that.
Yeah.
I go with my gut, and then for some reason, I talk myself out of picks.
So
Yeah,
are we
that was
going
like
to
some of my college picks this past week.
are we going to keep track of our picks week to week? And
I pick every game. So.
Well, but that's what I'm saying. We did the picks podcast last week, where we have a record of all of our picks. Should we start compiling this shit so at the end of the year we can see which one is?
I think we should have a $100 bet on it.
$100 bet.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Yeah, fuck it. Yeah, why not?
All right, yeah, I'm in.
I've lit worse on fire.
Why
All
not?
right. Well, you guys are going to have to get back to. You're going to have to listen to the podcast for your week 1 picks. I got mine here, so.
I believe out of the how many games have been played so far, that's been 14.
Shut up. I don't want the pick now. I don't want your picks
know.
now.
Oh no, I think I went 6 and 8.
I don't want your picks now. I think I went 6 and 8. Okay,
Yeah,
great.
I have no idea how I did. I know I lost one with fucking Houston.
And see, some of these actually are money line picks too. So I guess I didn't really technically. I had the Eagles money line, but then again I had the Eagles on the spread, but then again I had the Steelers on the spread too. So, but I put money line on them. What I would have made the bet. Do you want to do that, or what do you want to do?
I don't know.
Against the spread.
Want to pick them all against the spread? Okay,
Yeah,
so then
all against
I'll
the
call the Eagles want to win and the Steelers want to lose.
Or do we want to just start at week 2 because we didn't actually? Because I think there were a couple of games where I only picked over under. I don't think I even touched the spread.
All right, we'll start week 2 on. Week one was preseason for us.
Yeah, there we go.
We'll
That was
make a
our
spreadsheet.
tune-up. That was our tune-up
We'll
game.
make a spreadsheet on it. And
All right,
Nice.
that was our tune-up game. That was
Get rid of my Houston pick.
yeah, make it rain.
and your Packers pick that I fucking lost on to. But no, I mean, I actually.
Cheeseheads.
Well, let's see. I had the Vikings. I mean, not to get too crazy. Vikings -6, which was good. Bengals +3 is good. Bills +7, not good. That was before the McCarron trade, though, and still that probably wouldn't have been good. Jags -3, good. Bucks 10, good. Pats, Finns were good. I had the Chiefs, which was good, and I fucking talked the other way. I talked myself into the Chargers. I think you took the Chargers too, didn't you?
I think I did, but I think I was closer on
Something
it than I
about you
should
was
have been.
very convincing. I think I changed that one because of you too.
I think all three of us were on the Chargers, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, because
But I have it in
don't-
writing that at one point I wasn't on the Chargers.
Yeah, I don't think any of us were sold on Mahomes.
Yeah, I'm still not quite. I mean, the Chargers to me are a laugher. So, anywho, people will hear, fuck the Monday night games. We've already picked the Monday night games, so they can just listen to the podcast.
Yeah, if you're interested in that, just listen to the previous one.
There you go. That's a good one, as you're looking the other way and doing one of these.
Just rip an ass closer to your face.
You're an asshole. Well, is there anything else in the NFL that caught your eye you want to talk about before we wrap up here?
I mean, the Cleveland game, I just want to go back to it very quickly because it ended in the most Cleveland way possible, where they had the drive at the end of the fourth quarter and coughed it up. The Steelers get the ball back, they kick the field goal and miss, and then Cleveland has a chance. They have that prayer, they have that glimmer of hope, and then the field goal gets blocked. Like, there is nothing more fitting for a Cleveland non-win than the way this game ended.
I think it's just yeah, you're right. I mean, it's so crazy to think, okay, they went 0-16 last year. They had the parade. They upgraded the squad. Don't get me wrong. Whether you believe that the players are better, you have to. I mean, than what they had last year.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
You know, Tyrod Taylor, Jarvis Landry, Carlos Hyde, Nick Chubb, Gordon's back. You know, you have to believe they made a significant attempt to upgrade and be competitive. And for them to finally be on the doorstep of a win, and you could say, you know, oh, they were so close to winning, but they lost again. But it was like, no, they didn't lose.
Yeah.
They didn't lose, but in the hearts of the Cleveland fan,
It's not a loss. You could poll the entire city of Cleveland. I'd say it's 90 to 10. 90 to 10, it's not a loss.
I don't know about that, but I
would say like 65-35.
Yeah. I think there are more fans, a majority of fans would say it's not a loss, especially against the Steelers.
I'm going to look at 2017 Cleveland schedule and tell me how many. They were 0-16 last year.
Yes.
I want to see how many games they were actually in.
They were in the game against the Lions until like the last 5 minutes.
That's what I want to see, because there's a difference. This game they were in it, and they were down 21-7. So I mean, to get all the way back in
Well, if you want to look back at 2008 Detroit Lions, I mean, technically they were in 7 of those 16 games theoretically.
Wow.
I thought they had a better year that year than the following year where they went 4-12.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right, so last year they played Pittsburgh. They lost by 3 in the first week. Mm-hmm. Lost by 2 touchdowns to Baltimore. Lost by 3 to Indy with no Andrew Luck. Lost by 28 to Cincinnati. Lost by 3 to the Jets. Lost by a lot to Houston. Lost by 3 to the Titans. 2 touchdowns to Minnesota. 2 touchdowns to Detroit. 19-7 to Cleveland. So they were in. When I say in, 7 points or less. 1.
I would count the Detroit game they were in 2. Because it was like the last 5 minutes where Detroit piled on 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, but I mean, okay, so
I would consider that an in-game.
So let's say they were in 5 games last year, but at no point in those games, and you say they scored 2 touchdowns in 5 minutes, with the exception of the Green Bay game, sans Aaron Rodgers. I can't imagine. I'm trying to look at see. They didn't have the ability to win against Cleveland. Against Pittsburgh. They were down 21-0. They came back to make it a game. Mm-hmm. So Indianapolis.
Never really.
Yeah, they were down 28-7 early. The game against the Jets, they were in. So okay, you could go on. We could go down every game.
About 5 games, roughly.
The first game of this season against Pittsburgh, they had a chance to win a game after not winning. That's got to feel good for Cleveland fans.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I would say
I'd say it's okay. Fine. I'll say it's 80-20 that the Cleveland fans are happy with what happened Sunday.
I still say that's too high. I would say 2 out of every 3 fans would say that they're happy with a tie, I guess.
Yeah.
And the other third think it's a loss, even though they tied.
No, I disagree.
I don't know. Maybe you're talking crazy because the gas in there.
I don't know. I mean, when did the Lions lose all their games?
2008.
Okay, 2008. How long in 2009 did it take them to win a game?
I believe it was a while. I think it was like 6 weeks or something.
So they were like 0-22 straight?
If I remember right, they lost like 21 games in a row or something in the regular season.
You are not right. They lost the 16 and then they lost the first 2.
Oh, okay.
Oh, so week 3. Yeah, that's not bad.
Okay.
So they're basically the Lions, or basically the Browns. They went 0-16 and then 2-14 the next year.
Oh, we went 2-14.
They went 2-14 the
Okay.
following year.
I
They
was
won.
thinking it was 4-12 for some reason. I don't know.
Nope.
All right.
But how good did that feel in 2009 when they beat the Redskins 19-14?
Was a monkey off the back? I know.
I don't know. You tell me. You're the Lions fan.
It must have been just pure joy seeing a win finally after an entire season of just being shit upon.
Now take that
Well,
out hypothetically.
I was born being shit upon being a Lions fan, so.
But okay, so take it. Okay, it was great to feel a win, right? But take it to
Yeah.
feel okay. In week 3, you've lost 18 games in a row,
Uh-huh.
and in week 3, you didn't lose. You didn't win, but you didn't lose. That feels good, right? No, maybe
It's
I'm
gotta. It has to.
maybe I'm overthinking it, but
I think partially you're overthinking it, but I could understand your statement on that.
Do we know any Cleveland fans? We should bring them in.
I talked
My
to
boss is a Cleveland fan.
Well, I talked to a couple earlier, and I got about 2 out of 3 saying it was a good result.
talk to 3.
Okay.
I did talk to 3, and one said they blew that game. They should have easily won that in overtime, and
Well, you could say that about both teams.
Yeah.
Pittsburgh definitely blew the game.
Oh, for sure.
Look at how much Browns talk we got on this podcast.
I
Holy
know.
cow.
yeah.
So, all right. Well,
Well, if you're listening in Cleveland,
Yeah.
Cleveland ties. Cleveland ties. All right. Well, we appreciate you listening wherever you're listening. I think this is actually the headquarters of 12 Ounces in
Ooh.
Ohio. So
Are they?
he might be a Cleveland fan.
Uh-oh.
oh, I've got an interesting bet on top of our bet.
Oh, God.
The 2 losers of that bet should have to wear ties assigned by the winner.
Do you wear ties to work?
I do not.
Oh.
I can wear polo shirts to work.
We could do that. We could do like polo shirt for him and tie for you.
But see,
or
the thing
tie
is
for
like,
me.
okay, so if you and I lose, or if he and I lose, or wait, okay, hold on.
So if I win, then I would pick both of your ties. If he wins, then he put both of us. If you win, he pick both of us.
And see, the thing is, you would more than likely want to make them wear the tie of your team because they don't like your team. Like you would make me wear a Lions tie. But see, we wouldn't make each other wear Patriots ties.
I know.
So if I win, what do I do to him?
I'm sure you could think of
Buccaneers?
something. Yeah, it could be a Buccaneers.
It could be a
or-
Buccaneers tie.
Buccaneers are like a Dolphins or like a Cleveland tie or.
Yeah, I feel like I'd rather make him wear.
A Detroit Red Wings tie.
No, I feel like I'd rather make him wear a big tie with Peyton Manning's face on it.
You'll find something like that, I'm sure. They got some crazy stuff out there now. So.
All right.
All right, fair enough.
Yeah, well, there's
We'll
going-
totally forget about that in 16 weeks.
Yeah. I think there's going to be another aspect to this bet once it's all said and done, but we'll see how it all shakes out.
All right, well, we've got a couple of things coming up. We want to thank our sponsors, VGK Pop Sockets. We want to thank chaipoker.com or net. I think it's both, actually.
Oh.
And we obviously want to thank 12 Ounce Sports Radio for putting us on the air each week, twice a week. Actually, this week we're on 3 times. We're going to start being on 3 times a week.
What the fuck?
Jeez.
Well, you two only have to show up twice.
Okay.
We do our regular Sunday night podcast, which is aired on Mondays.
Yeah.
And then we do our Picks and Chatter podcast. But it's aired on Saturdays right before the college games. And then our NFL portion is aired right before the NFL games.
Interesting.
So just in case people who need to chase money on Sunday, they get a replay of our NFL portion.
Okay.
So whoever tailed us and lost on Saturday can tail us again.
Or fade us and lose again.
Yeah.
Because if you tailed Saturday, you were very mad at us. And then if you faded me on Sunday, you're even more mad at me. Anyway.
Light your tickets on fire.
Yeah, I pretty much, which game was it? The Kansas State game, I pretty much lit that ticket on fire pretty early. So, anyways, for Spike, for Token Tony, I am Aaron. We appreciate you listening in, and we will see you on the next one.